Thank you all for joining us on this rainy day for a conversation with Burlington candidates. Wanted to turn it over to Jaya and Ram to do a welcome.
Now, Jaya and Ram, you'll have to unmute yourselves again. There you go.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This program is really sponsored by us, Jaya and I, and some of the Indians here, Ram Satyaprasad, Dinesh Tanna, in addition to the Chris, Andy, and a lot of the Burlington Democratic people and some of the Republicans. So it's for everybody. It's for town people. And we really appreciate you joining us. And there are around 53 registered people today. That's a pretty good number considering a day like this and things of that sort. So this is basically to share the information of the candidates. And I think most of the candidates have been in the meeting or I've been doing Zoom call a lot. And I thank you for everybody. And Jay, you want to say something? I don't want to take too much time.
Just want to welcome everyone. Please listen to candidates, ask questions, and share whatever you would like to with the candidate. And let's after this, make an informed decision when we vote. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, at this time, I would like to welcome our state representative, Ken Gordon. He has been very friendly to all of us and has been very active in the state legislature. He's doing a fantastic job. We should keep on electing him as long as we can. So without due time, I welcome Ken Gordon for the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ram. You can hear me, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you to Ram and Jaya and the entire host committee for giving me this opportunity to be with you. Thank you for remaining so active. Welcome to all of the voters who've come here, who prioritize your participation in the town election by hearing out these candidates. And thank you to the candidates for the respect that you show the voters of Burlington by taking the time out of your Sunday to share your views about how you will lead Burlington into the future. What encourages me again about this event is the diversity of the faces that I see. This time it's on this Hollywood Square Zoom layout. Before it was at Ram and Jaya's house. People from all corners of Burlington are once again turning out to learn about our terrific candidates. We're joined by folks who have run for office or supported political candidates for years, and it's good to see you again. But just as important, throughout this election season, we've been joined by voters from the Indian American community, as well as voters who are young and old, men and women, Black, brown, Pan-Asian, as well as white. Campaigns should no longer be able to count on the same people who vote regularly to turn out for them every time. You are requiring candidates to reach out to you and address your unique issues. Issues like civil rights, climate justice, economic and educational opportunity, respect for different religions and cultures, and safety, balanced with social service and criminal justice issues. The candidates who speak this afternoon can be confident that they will be judged on the basis of their ideas and their experience, not just the length of their residency or the power of their parents. This is a group looking for good ideas. Whether those ideas come from men or women, whether those ideas come from people who are Black or white, brown, Asian, or some other race, no matter how they pray or who they love, the question is, will their ideas bring Burlington toward the community that they see as their future? That's why we're here. That's how democracy should work. And here it does. And there's more, as they say on late night TV. If you aspire to town leadership or to serve in the state or federal leadership, understand that your status as Indian Americans, Asians, Black, brown, LGBTQ, or anything else should not be a barrier for you. When you look on the faces on this Zoom, I hope you can be confident that if you run for office, your candidacy will be taken seriously. Among the voters on this call, you'll be judged on the content of your ideas and the breadth of your experience, and not the color of your skin, your race, your religion, or other separating factors. And we will work hard so that this will be true for the majority of folks all through this state, all through this country, because you have a right to expect your voice to be heard and your position to be respected, even if everyone does not agree with what you have to say. Does that mean that anyone who has the opportunity to run in an election will win? Of course not. That depends on what you have to say and what you've done. But it means you should be considered. I'm a white guy, and I'm a white guy in office, and I'm saying this, and it's not threatening. If anyone thinks they can do a better job representing Burlington in the legislature than I'm doing, then you should have the opportunity to bring your case to the voters. I'm confident I've done my best, and I'd rise to the challenge, but that doesn't mean that folks shouldn't have the opportunity when elections come to bring their challenge. Supporting diversity does not mean admitting that every white man should step aside. All it means is that people of color, women, members of the LGBTQ community should have a chance to be heard. It means the marketplace of ideas is not our domain alone. White men still have good ideas, but we have no monopoly on them, and we certainly have no birthright to leadership. Who knows where the next great leader will come from? We benefit when we allow that leader to come from each corner of our community, not just the same places every time. So congratulations to the candidates, welcome to the voters, and let's hear from our very best. Thank you.
Thank you, State Rep Gordon. Appreciate that. So as we get started, we're going to have some students that are going to be introducing our candidates. We actually have 3 students that are with us. And so I'm going to just talk a little bit about each one of them. Rohit has been living in Burlington for most of his life, starting at the age of 2. Rohit went to Pine Glen. He went to Marshall Simons, and he's a graduate of Burlington High School. He was the 2017 valedictorian. Currently, Rohit is a senior at Northeastern University, where he's finishing up his bachelor's in computer science. Rohit will be graduating this summer and will be starting a full-time job as a sophomore engineer. Next, we have Shufali Bhakri. She's a freshman at Burlington High School. She is the reigning Miss India Teen Massachusetts and an honor student at Burlington High School. At BHS, she is an active member of her student council, robotics club, and environmental action club. She's been a resident of Burlington's Precinct 5 and is going to be graduating in the class of 2024. Some of her hobbies include dancing, singing, and acting. And lastly, we have Neil Pandit. Many of you know him. He's lived in town for over 20 years, his entire life. He's up in Upland Road in Precinct 6. Neil attended Fox Hill, Marshall Simons Middle School, and then Burlington High School, where he graduated in 2019. Neil is an avid photographer working in a volunteer capacity with many local nonprofits and has joined being an active member in the community. He is glad to have lived in Burlington and provided him with the education and community support that has brought him to where he is today. Before graduating from BHS, Neil was accepted into the prestigious Temple Medical Scholars combined BA/MD program at Washington and Jefferson College. Neil is a sophomore neuroscience major on a pre-health track with a minor in conflict and resolution studies. Most recently, Neil has been elected speaker of his college's Student Government Association. He is proud and honored to be given the chance to introduce candidates for elected office in his hometown. So as we go through today, we're going to have 8 minutes for our officers that are in contested races for town-wide races. When we switch to contested races for town meeting, they'll have 4 minutes. And then from there, we're going to have 4 minutes for any candidates that are gracious to join us in uncontested races. If there is time after they're done speaking for questions, please make sure that we put those questions either in the chat or emailing Andy so that those questions can be asked. And we look forward to a really good conversation here. Of note, one of the candidates running for town clerk, Joe Welch, was invited and reached out multiple times for him to attend this event, and he did not respond to our invitation. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rohit to introduce Amy Warfield.
Amy Warfield is our current town clerk and running for re-election for town clerk. It's the position that Amy has held in Burlington for the last 10 years. Amy has the experience, leadership, dedication, and service that is needed to be able to help the town as we face the challenges in the coming years. I'll turn it over to Amy.
Thank you very much. I want to start too by recognizing Rep. Ken Gordon for his efforts in passing special legislation that allows Burlington to conduct early voting during this year's town election due to the pandemic. As clerk, I worked closely with him and our state senator, Cindy Friedman, to push forward and to support this legislation. So thank you very much, Ken, for those efforts for the town of Burlington. Secondly, I'd like to say thank you to all of you that organized this event. The informed electorate is the key to effective democracy. And I am disappointed that my opponent has not taken advantage of the many opportunities like this one to share his qualifications. I am the most qualified candidate for this position as town clerk. I do bring the experience, leadership, dedication, and service required to be successful in this position. My experience is evidenced by the more than 10 years as town clerk and the numerous certificates that I've obtained, but also demonstrated by supporting new clerks overwhelmed by the responsibility of the job and assisting experienced clerks with actions and functions that they have to do, such as facing election recounts. During the pandemic that started last year, there were many ways that I demonstrated leadership. Leadership started prior to the town hall closing with my decision to split up my staff into two groups, physically isolated from each other in different locations, to minimize the risk of the ability and be able to conduct elections, town meetings, and get done with our job, although it thoroughly made the job much more difficult. Leadership was successfully conducting 3 elections, 3 town meetings, and providing our essential government services in the time of consistently changing regulations and laws. In such an environment, plans are short-lived, iterations are many, and flexibility is the key. My goal, though, was always been how to keep voters, residents, staff safe while meeting the obligations of being clerk. Leadership is implementing the Viewpoint software to facilitate the communication between planning, building, zoning, and zoning board of appeals and the other departments with a unified workflow. Our building and planning applications, supporting documents, and payments are all now submitted electronically. So while town hall was closed, it ended up allowing those activities to continue. The benefit to the clerk's office was the reduction in paperwork that had to be handled. The records are all available online and even accessible by the public. As far as service is enduring the answering of each phone call directly. We do not condemn you to voicemail hell. We answer the phone, direct you to the right location. Service is helping confused residents navigate the complexities of town government, whether it's opening a small business, whether it's making some change to your home through a variance, or getting a safety issue addressed. Service is also recognizing the grief of a recent widow, picking up death certificates, stopping to take the time to console her and to listen to what her story is. And then dedication is exceeding the requirements of the position. It is taking that evening call of a panicked mother who can't find her children's birth certificates that are required for a trip that they're departing on the next morning and getting her those new copies. Dedication is solving the crisis of the hysterical bride who has discovered that the office is now closed and she forgot to pick up her marriage license for the ceremony the next day. Dedication is taking the time from a busy election schedule to meet with high school civics classes to educate them about government and their role in it. So, as you consider which candidate to vote for, I ask you to seriously consider who has the qualifications to do the job. I believe the answer is obvious. Hopefully, the pandemic will soon be in our rearview mirror, but there'll still be many challenges that we have to face as we move forward. The legislature plans to develop new laws which will change how elections are conducted. Our voting equipment is at the end of its useful life, and it's time for it to be replaced. The national census from 2020 will force us to redraw our precinct boundaries. And with the pandemic affecting many businesses in our town, the financial situation is unclear. Businesses fund much of our budget through their taxes, and we will be challenged to provide the same services in a tougher economy. And then finally, the internet has changed everyone's expectations. We can't continue to deliver the services the way we've done it for the last 10 years. We must continue to change and grow to better serve the residents and businesses of Burlington. I thank you for your time, and I ask you to vote for me, Amy Warfield, for town clerk in this election. Thank you.
Hey, Andy, do we have any questions for Amy?
I didn't see any that came in that were specific to her. I don't think so.
Okay.
I can wait around too.
Yep.
Somebody thinks of something. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Amy, so much. Switch back to Rohit to introduce our next person.
So Joe Morandy could not make the event due to a family emergency, unfortunately, but Mike Espejo will be reading a statement on his behalf. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Rohit. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Espejo. I didn't really plan on speaking today. I just came to listen to all the candidates, but Joe asked me to read this on his behalf. And his statement reads, "My name is Joe Morandy, and I'm running for re-election to the Board of Selectmen. Thank you to the residents that organized the event this afternoon. Also, thank you to everyone that came to listen in and all the candidates running for office. My sincere apologies for not being able to join you this afternoon, as I'm attending to my parents today, as I do every Sunday, as they're both suffering from the late stages of dementia. I've served over 20 years in town government, in town meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals, as a selectman, and I've been on many different committees and subcommittees. I also coached Pop Warner here in Burlington for 15 years and have been involved in many charitable organizations and fundraisers. I'm a longtime resident and also a small business owner here in town. This gives me a unique perspective to relate to the many different challenges that face all of us. This past year has been tough for everyone. The global pandemic has presented us with unprecedented challenges and obstacles. As chairman of the Board of Selectmen for the past 2 years, I am proud that we have been able to weather the storm in true Burlington spirit. All along, my priority has been the safety and well-being of all the residents in town, as well as working hard to do everything we can to help ensure the businesses in town not only survive, but prosper once again. While the end of the lockdown is in sight, we still have a lot of work to do. I'm asking the residents of Burlington for another term to finish the job we've begun. I want to ensure that Burlington continues on this solid path of recovery. It has been my greatest honor and pleasure to serve as your selectman for the past 6 years. If anyone has any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me at jmorandy9826@gmail.com. And I humbly ask for one of your 2 votes for the Board of Selectmen on April 10th. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. So if Amy's still there, there's actually a question that did come in the chat. So I'm gonna turn it back to her since we're running a little early. The question is, do you see any unusual problems for this year's town meeting? And I'm assuming he's meaning for May.
Thank you, Chris. I don't see any unusual problems. I think what we're going to do is we're going to continue with the format that we used in January, which was kind of a hybrid. Those people who either don't have technology or feel uncomfortable with the technology will be able to come to a breakout room, and will, depending on what the numbers are allowed per room, we will have several different breakout rooms that will have a moderator in it, and then we will coordinate those all through the town moderator. The rest of the attendees will be virtual as we did before. And then in preparation for the meeting, we are working on, like we did for the past 3 meetings, a number and a series of educational videos. So if a department is asking for a lot of money, we will have some explanation, presentation, that type of thing ahead of time, so people can really prepare ahead of time and get their questions answered to work inside the time frame that we do have with working with a hybrid meeting.
Great. Awesome.
We do hope, we do hope to get back, maybe in September to a more normal, healthy, regular town meeting.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. All right, I'm going to turn it back to Rohit, and he can introduce Mike Runyon.
So Mike is a lifelong Burlington resident and recently retired after 31 years at the Burlington Fire Department. He is quite proud of the many successes during his 9 years as selectman, such as the MWRA Connection, paramedic program at Burlington Fire, and our designations as Green Community and Housing Choice Community. So I'll turn it over to him now.
All right, thank you, Rohit, for that introduction. You stole some of my thunder in my opening remarks, but regardless, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Runyon, candidate for re-election to the Board of Selectmen. As Rohit said, I am a lifelong resident of Burlington and a class of 1976 graduate at Burlington High School, where I met my wife, Lisa Roberto. We have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. I recently retired after more than 30 years of service as a firefighter EMT at the Burlington Fire Department, and I am forever grateful to the town for that opportunity. I have a long history in town government, having served 12 years on town meeting, 3 years as a commissioner at Burlington Housing Authority, and currently serving my 3rd term as your selectman. I'm quite proud of my accomplishments as selectman over the past 9 years, which includes implementing the paramedic services at our fire department, making the MWRA connection a reality to ensure our residents have clean, potable water, and creating an economic development directives position to ensure our important business partners have a voice in town government. You have all seen the new Fire Station 2 on Terrace Hall Ave and the renovations at the Senior Center, as well as 33 Center Street, where our youth and family services are located, have both been completed. The new DPW and recreation facility will be completed in the spring. We have implemented a sidewalk program to enhance walkability opportunities in town and recently received funding from the state's Complete Streets program that will allow us to finish sidewalks on Mall Road and Terrace Hall Avenue. We also received the Green Communities designation due to our efforts in reducing carbon emissions through various means, such as installing energy efficient LED bulbs in all of our streetlights and municipal buildings, and by purchasing fuel efficient vehicles. Burlington is one of only 62 communities to have received the Housing Choice designation for meeting or exceeding the state's guidelines for affordable housing. So those are just some of the achievements during my 9 years as selectman. I take very serious the duties and responsibilities of selectmen and take great pride in creating new policies and programs that enhance the quality of life of our residents. There is a lot to like about Burlington, and that is because of the vision, dedication, teamwork, and cautious approach of this administration and the Board of Selectmen. We have great challenges ahead as we attempt to recover from the devastating economic effects of the pandemic, but I am confident that we will prevail, and I predict that we will likely adopt some aspects of the operational changes, as Amy mentioned, that we've implemented during the past 12 months. I have a great respect for the voters in Burlington. I know they pay close attention all year round, and not just in April. Because I hear from them all year round, I return their phone calls and emails, or I have polite conversations at the grocery store or coffee shops with them. They know me and trust me, and I am confident that they will cast their vote based on performance and ideologies important to them on April 10th. Thank you for the opportunity to share my views this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So we have a question that's going to be asked to our selectmen candidates. This one is submitted from Joanne Fristacci. 1/3 of Burlington's school children are non-white. 1/4 of the residents are non-white. 52% are women who have not had representation on this board in 11 years. What has the Board of Selectmen overlooked that could be rectified so the town government and our elected officials more accurately reflect the town and more capably reach underserved communities?
Well, I can't speak for the school side, and there's always room for improvement, Chris. I think the town has done a pretty good job at electing or appointing women and minorities to leadership positions throughout town. And I'll give you some examples. Many of them are represented here today. Our town clerk, Amy Warfield, female, obviously. Our newly hired budget director, female. Economic development director, the female. The Board of Health director, female. Our human resources director, 2 females in that office, one of them a woman of color. The planning director was a female. Our council on aging director, Marge McDonald. We appointed Henry Wu, Asian American member of the community, to our Housing Partnership Committee. You have Ram here today, who's elected to the library trustees. Indra Deb, who's been elected to our Conservation Commission for many, many years. Jaya, recently appointed to Ways and Means. My DPW director, John Sanchez, of Latin American descent. So there's some. I mean, I always like to point to our police department as well. We've got 8 female patrol officers in our police department. As a matter of fact, one of the first hires we made as the town, when we eliminated civil service from the hiring process, we hired a Burlington resident from the Indian community, Ramiz. He's been on the job now for 5 or 6 years. He's doing an outstanding job for us. So I think that on the town side, anyhow, I think we've been creating opportunities. I gave you some good examples there, and like I said at the top of the piece there's always room for improvement, and our human resources director and our department heads are certainly aware of the composition of our community, and we strive to make every effort to see that they're represented and given opportunities within the community.
Great. And then one other question from Andy Wells Beans. We're in the midst of a growing climate crisis, yet Burlington has never performed a greenhouse gas inventory, much less committed to community-wide carbon emissions reductions. Should there be a sustainability committee or something similar to spearhead such an effort?
Our DPW was sort of taking the lead on those efforts. I highlighted our green communities designation in my opening remarks. Some of you may have noticed we installed a electric vehicle charging station in Town Hall. But yeah, I mean, I'd certainly be open to having a committee if we can. We're getting considerable savings from those efforts as well in town here. So sure, if there's some other ideas out there and people have some knowledge about how we can save money through energy reduction efforts, I'd be certainly more than willing to ask the town administrator or DPW director to have a committee to help us along. We'd welcome that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Shufali, and she can introduce Sharia Ellis.
Yep. So 32 years ago, Sherry and her husband chose Burlington to make their home. Her daughters have enjoyed many of the great Burlington recreation programs and youth athletics, as well as attended Burlington public schools. Having worked at Lab Collaborative and Minuteman Senior Services for a total of 20 years and volunteering for Meals on Wheels, Sherry stated that she has had the opportunity to interact directly with Burlington seniors, veterans, and those living with disabilities. She states that she is proud of her accomplishments as a 25-year town meeting member and her leadership on town issues. She states that she represents a different and important perspective, and she is more than prepared on day one to make a significant contribution to the Board of Selectmen. Take it away, Sherry.
Find my unmute button. Thank you, Shufali. I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for all the hosts. I won't be able to name all your names, but and for Ken for his comments in the beginning. And I want to thank the candidates for all participating, and for all the voters who joined us today and who will be joining us in the many versions when this is passed out to the public. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Sharia Ellis, and I am a candidate for the Board of Selectmen. As Shufali said before, my husband Britt and I moved to Massachusetts 32 years ago and moved to Burlington. It has many advantages that were offered to my young family. My daughters, as she did say, participated in the rec programs, the athletic programs, and they attended and they graduated from the public schools. Working at Minuteman and Lab, and also volunteering for Meals on Wheels and helping out and supporting many local community organizations, Woman Aid, Help Is, and People Helping People. I did interact directly with residents, the seniors, the veterans, and those living with disabilities, giving me a firsthand understanding that the challenges that many in our community face, such as access to resources, communication, transportation, and housing. And working as a town meeting member, I've been a leader in the areas of planning and responsible development, a champion of fiscal responsibility, and an advocate for housing and resource accessibility. Some of my accomplishments include initiating the school department's 2018 fiscal review. I established the town zoning bylaw review committee, co-sponsored the reestablishment of the town scholarship fund, and as an advocate for Walkable Burlington, I championed the development of the Burlington Sidewalk program, bringing sidewalks to streets such as Terrace Hall Avenue, Sandy Brook, and Bedford. As a landlocked forest committee member, I was part of their successful effort to preserve the forest for open space. I co-sponsored the warrant article to fund the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion for the schools. And currently I'm a member of the Northwest Park Housing Committee, working to bring a senior affordable housing option to our community. In addition to my civic and professional activities, I've spent considerable time listening to community leaders and different constituency groups and learned their perspectives and concerns on the many issues facing Burlington. Through my active participation in the various municipal meetings, such as the Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, Ways and Means, and Capital Budget, I've done my homework and I'm well prepared to engage in all the board's discussions. It's clear that Burlington's at a critical juncture and needs leadership that both understands the complex issues that our community currently faces, while also planning responsibly for our future. The town needs a strong, knowledgeable, open-minded, and experienced member who will add a diverse perspective to the existing board and better represent the town that Burlington is today. I know that I'm well prepared and ready on day one to make a significant contribution to the board. This is an important election for our community. Please make sure you vote. Your voice matters. When you do vote, I respectfully ask that you vote for me, Sharia Ellis, as your next member of the Board of Selectmen. Thanks. And I guess I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. Someone asked the same questions I asked to Mike. So the first one was from Joanne Fristacci. 1/3 of Burlington's schools children are non-white. 1/4 of its residents are non-white. 52% are women who have not had representation on the Board of Selectmen in 11 years. What has the Board of Selectmen overlooked that could be rectified so that town government and our elected officials more accurately reflect this town and more capably reach underserved communities?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Joanne, for the question. I understand Burlington's truly a diverse community, and it's diverse in many ways. We're made up of different cultures, genders, experiences, abilities, and perspectives. With my professional, my civic, and my personal experiences, I can bring a different perspective to the current board. And I think that having many points of view enable more thoughtful discussions and will improve the decision-making process. With regard to having a board that better represents our community, I believe that we can and we should do more to address how we can encourage more participation and be more welcoming of all voices. I've advocated at the Board of Selectmen meetings for a town-wide action plan to address equity and accessibility in our community. And I was a proponent for the funding of the school's DEI director's position, addressing the inclusion and accessibility for all of Burlington's residents, employees, business partners, and visitors. I think that adding that director position is an important first step in the education process of our town. That being said, the role of selectmen is to set the strategic policy and plan for our town for the future. And this current board has not placed any conversations about this topic on the forefront of their agenda. And that really needs to change. I realize I don't have all the answers. However, my goal is to engage with our residents and our community partners and elevate the importance of these conversations and to leverage what the school example was and develop a plan of action to move our town forward. Increasing the accessibility of information in our town communications, things such as language translation, closed captioning, and formats like this for remote participation are some basic yet really impactful ways we can take in the initial stages that will benefit many in our community. With the guiding principles of equality and accessibility as a key to building an effective local government and a strong community, I know that we can do better.
Great. And then the second question is from Andy Wells-Bean. We are in the midst of a growing climate crisis, yet Burlington has never performed a greenhouse gas inventory, much less committed to community-wide carbon emission reductions. Should there be a sustainability committee or something similar to spearhead such an effort?
Okay, thanks, Chris. And I think that was Andy, right? So in my conversations with different leaders, I've also spoken with our DPW director, John Sanchez, and certainly about something such as a sustainability committee or a task force. And in my conversations with him, he certainly was agreeable to the fact that, you know, use our resources within our community, and that's our people, the strengths we have. And he is certainly open to the idea, and I believe it would be a great idea to do. There's many different aspects of sustainability and ways to get us to a carbon net zero that we want to do. And I think that there are many programs out there that can assist us with this and many people who have expertise in this. And I've spoken to several within our own community, and I know that they would be willing to help with that. And that would be a great thing to do. And I think that we should take the lead on that and work towards that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. And for the candidates, just so you know that we're not able to get to all of the questions that are being asked, but there are some questions in the chat, and you may want to then follow up with the individual people. But at this time, we're going to turn it over to Shufali to introduce Mike Kelly.
Yep, Michael Kelly graduated Washington Tech as a class of 2005. His career as a school custodian for another district. He has been a resident of Burlington for 6 years. Mike?
Yes, hi there, everyone. I'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you to Mr. Ken Gordon for allowing this event to happen. My name's Michael Kelly, and I'm excited to announce my candidacy for Washington Tech to be your next representative to represent the town of Burlington on the board. I grew up attending Berwick Public Schools and Washington Tech. I also graduated in 2005. I studied the metal fabrication program while attending Washington. I also received numerous citizenship awards and also received my Eagle Scout in 2004. My municipal education is I served on the Berwick Town Meeting for 3 terms while living in Berwick, and also served on the old It's in School Use Committee. I'm running for this position because I feel more than ever it is a critical point in education with the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges of delivering a quality vocational education in an ever-changing environment. I want to be their voice to be able to represent the residents of Burlington on the board. Whether you have children who only attend Shawsheen or considering attending Shawsheen, vocational education also plays a crucial role in preparing our students to become highly skilled workers and to be critical thinkers. I also, my top 5 reasons for running is to be able to hopefully transition from a hybrid model after this last year of going to a remote learning model. I'm hoping to be able to have Shawsheen to be able to return to 100% capacity of also having in-person learning. I'm also one that is financially conservative, while also continuing to meet the needs of the children and also the staff as well. My other point of view is to continue to improve the technology, so we may have an equal level playing field, and also to preserve our strong educational standards for the 21st century. And to also, one other issue is to also improve the media marketing to showcase the students that attend Shawsheen from the town of Burlington. That is such an important topic that needs to be talked about. Thank you.
Thank you. So a question that we have is, for you, Michael, is you've mentioned in one of your top 5 initiatives is to eliminate the Common Core standards. The question is, what is your understanding of the Common Core standards? Why are you opposed to them? And what would you implement in its place?
Okay. Well, I don't agree with Common Core. And the reason why I don't agree with Common Core is because it's the process behind it is that we need to go back to the standards that was put in place back in 1993 when Education Reform Act was enacted back in 93. The way those standards were in the early 90s is the way it needs to be now. Because Common Core doesn't work for everyone. You have children that are on IEPs that may have some learning disabilities that need a little extra help, but also the way they learn their academics may not be equal to someone that could get all A's and maybe enrolled in an AP program. Not all the children learn the same. And that's what Common Core is trying to do. They're trying to make us equal to the rest of the country, so we're all on the same equal playing field. And unfortunately, Common Core isn't the way to go.
Okay, great. So this one came in the chat. The pandemic has shown showed the critical importance of air quality in the schools. Do you have a proposal for improvements?
In all honesty, the maintenance department and the facilities department at Shawsheen has, as far as I can see, they have a real good system down there. I don't see any issues with the air quality at Shawsheen. The ongoing maintenance of Shawsheen. And my point of view is fantastic compared to other towns around. So as far as that's concerned, I don't have any issues with that, with Shawsheen.
Great. And the last question, how can you in your role help to promote the importance of vocational education?
Well, also, the number one way to be able to continue vocational education is we need to do a better job at trying to market Shawsheen to the children that are in 7th and 8th grade. I don't believe they're receiving the amount of information that they should be receiving to make the informed decision to apply to Shawsheen. I know that there's some people that may say that, oh, if you go to the tech, you can't go to college. Well, that's not true. And we also need to also be able to try to market, Shawsheen and the students that attend Shawsheen that live in Burlington. We need to showcase them more because I don't believe that they're getting much out there.
All right. Thank you, Michael. All right, I'm going to turn it back to Shufali and she can introduce Christine Kim.
Christine Kim is a Burlington Mama of 3, a small business owner, and an accountant. She's also a volunteer with Burlington youth organizations in sports and music. Over to Christine.
Thank you so much, Shufali. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this. This is great. I wanted to start with, and thank you, Ken, for being here today. I wanted to start with, I'm a homeowner and a business owner here in Burlington. I care about our town. I chose to run because I believe my skills in accounting and finance balance out the overall profile of the current school committee, which includes many attorneys and teachers, but I feel that an accountant is necessary as well. I feel that my skills would help in budgeting and analytics and provide additional perspective in that regard. I have 3 children, as Shufali mentioned. One graduated 2016 from Burlington High School. I have a daughter that attends Shawsheen and a son that attends Burlington High School. I'm a parent, so I know not just the concerns that my children have for their education, but also the concerns that I have for their education and their future. And I've seen personally the social emotional impact of the last year of hybrid learning. And not just for my children, but for the parents and teachers as well. Having a son that graduated and a son there now, I have a broad scope of understanding what works, what doesn't, and what's possible. So I can blend some of the ideas that I see from around our region and apply them at Shawsheen School Committee meetings. I care about the students here in Burlington. I have volunteered my time to youth sports here, youth activities. I have the children's futures in mind when I consider Shawsheen and to the direction that I would like to see it go. I have volunteered as a head coach with town sports, helped as a team mom. I have coached a STEM group called Destination Imagination that focuses on leadership in children and teens. I'm currently on the board of the Performing Arts Parents Association and the current treasurer there. I have degrees in management and accounting. I have experience participating in IEP meetings as a parent, and I have some understanding related to the needs of students that require more individualized education. More choices equal more opportunities for our Burlington children, and I would like to be a part of that future with Shawsheen School Committee. I will say that I have 3 priorities. My first priority which is the priority of the school committee, is hiring a new superintendent. The one that we currently have is temporary, and he's great, but we need to hire a permanent one that we can go into the future with, one that has ideas, that is kind and considerate, but can still lead, that can deal with both parents and teachers with understanding and thoughtfulness, but still guide us with good ideas to go into the future and achieve the goals that we want with education. Some of that vision involves technology at this time. He'd like to have one-on-one technology for the children in the school. I do believe in that as well. My second priority is that Shasheen's changing over to full-time education in May, per the Department of Education. I want to make sure that our school handles the social emotional impact of the last year well. I know that the children I know have received a great education actually over this last year. I felt like the social emotional piece is the one that's toughest on the kids and parents and teachers. So I would like to help with that. And then lastly is the increasing awareness of Shasheen as a choice for Burlington students, and increasing diversity at Shasheen, which is important to me because I feel like with all of the things going on right now, that diversity creates understanding, and understanding takes away from hate. So the more we understand each other, the less likely there is that there would be that hate in our school. So my specifically, that's my project that I want to work on over the next 3 years, to increase the amount of kids that are going to Shasheen from Burlington, to increase awareness of Shasheen for the Burlington kids and what it can do for them, and increase the diversity there through talking to the kids and seeing what that barrier is, why it's there, and how we can eliminate it for them. I would love to have your vote on April 10th, and thank you for listening.
Great, thank you. So we're going to ask the similar question to you: is what are your thoughts on Common Core academics and reaching all students, and compares to vocational training and vocational learning?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, what are your thoughts on the Common Core standards and its in relation to vocational training at Shasheen?
So in regard to Common Core, I believe that the schools do need minimum standards to be achieved by everyone. I'm not sure that tests reflect students though, and what they've learned. Some do better on tests than others. It's not a good reflection. I think there are multiple ways that we understand where our kids are in regard to the standards of education. I think we can do better than Common Core. I'm not against it per se, but I do feel like we can do better.
Great. This question is from Sheila Fitzpatrick. Many of the staff at Shasheen are represented by a union. If elected, your term will cover the time frame in which the Shasheen Teachers Association and other bargaining units will be negotiating a new contract with the school committee. In previous social media posts, you advocated for hiring non-union teachers at Shasheen. Are you against hiring union teachers? And will you work collaboratively with the various unions to negotiate new contracts that are equitable and fair?
So we have vocational teachers that are non-union. We have other teachers that are non-union. I do believe in the union. I believe it protects jobs. And it protects our teachers. And I did, yeah, that's a tough question. It's going to be, unions are always tough, and working in collaboration with them is going to be important. Seeing both sides and seeing where we can compromise is going to be the most important thing at that time.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to turn it back to Shufali. I'm going to switch over to the town meeting candidates.
Michael Hardy is a lifelong Burlington resident. Michael also serves on the Ways and Means Town Finance Committee. Michael also wants to continue to make Burlington a great place to live. Over to Michael.
Thank you, Shufali, and thank you for everybody for having me on. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So as Shufali mentioned, I'm running for town meeting. Actually, I've been on town meeting for a few years, but I'm running because it's another way for me to give back to Burlington. I'm a very committed person to Burlington. I've been a lifelong resident here. I've gone through the school systems in Burlington, from Fox Hill to Marshall Simons to the high school. I bought a house here when I got married. I've raised my family here. My kids have all gone through Burlington High School also. So I'm committed to the town. I think it's a great place to live, and we all need to work together to keep it that way. So that's why I'm running. Some of the reasons why I think I'm a good candidate, probably the most important thing that I do relative to town meeting is I'm also serving on what is called our Town Finance Committee. We call it the Ways and Means Committee. I've been on this committee for 15 years or so. Not even sure exactly how long, but Amy Warfield probably could look that up. And the two roles, town meeting and the Finance Committee, are very similar. What town meeting really does is we vote on things in Burlington that have to do primarily with spending money. So we vote on budgets. We vote on school budgets. We vote on all the town budgets. We vote on these things called warrant articles, which are things that mostly departments in town request, like maybe the school needs a new roof, or we're going to spend some money to fix some athletic fields, that type of thing. The other part that town meeting does, we do also review and vote on changes to some of our Burlington laws, like bylaws and zoning and so forth, but mostly it's a financial responsibility. So as a member of the Ways and Means Committee, I go through all the requests to spend money in great detail. Our committee is in the middle of this right now. We meet once a week, probably from January through May. So we spend a ton of time. I actually have my fiscal year 2022 book right here. It's very thick, full of budgets, a lot of information. So we go through that in a huge amount of detail. And what that does for me on town meeting is it makes me a very informed town meeting member. By the time we come to vote on things in town meeting, I've heard about it, talked about it, or reviewed all the particular things at least twice, sometimes more than that. So I really have a lot of great understanding on what's going on. I understand the way town finances work. I understand the budgets, the warrant process, all the departments, what they do, how they operate. And I think that makes me a very good town meeting member. Other things in terms of just my commitment to the town, I've been involved in youth sports in town, coaching soccer, been on the Burlington Rec Soccer Committee for, I'm not on it anymore, but I was on between coaching and the rec, the committee, I don't know, 15 years. I even coached Rohit for a year or two. He was an excellent soccer player. If you're still on, Rohit, it was good to see you again. And congratulations on your studies. It sounds like you're doing great, so keep that up. Other things, the things that concern me in town, obviously town finances is kind of where I spend a lot of time. And I just think it's really important because we need to balance in this town the services that we provide our residents and our students with the taxes that we ask our homeowners to pay and our businesses to pay. And that's a delicate balancing act. And I think we have to be thoughtful and careful about that. And I'm in a good position to understand that. Schools are important to me. I think that, it's really important that we provide the best education we can for Burlington students. The student body, the ethnicities of the students, their backgrounds, their needs, all that is constantly changing and has changed tremendously over, my time in Burlington. And it's something that we, continually need to adapt to and look carefully at the schools and make sure our programs are right, our people are right, our teachers, our administrators, so that we can support all these students to the best of our ability. Public safety is another area that's been important to me. When you serve on Ways and Means Committee, you pick a subcommittee and you study those budgets in particular detail, and you make presentations to the overall committee on that. And for about the past 10 years or more, I've been the subcommittee chairperson for our public safety, which includes fire, police, and emergency management. So I've worked with those departments for a long time. I've helped guide those departments as they have changed over the years from a financial perspective and sometimes from an operational perspective as they've evolved and the town's needs have evolved. For example, a couple people have mentioned Fire Station 2. I was very involved in the decisions on Fire Station 2, the kind of the financing of it and the construction of it. I was on the construction committee. Along with that, we brought advanced life support to in-house. So our Burlington Fire Department provides that, where before we used to outsource that. That's an important thing for Burlington and a benefit for our town. I've helped the police department on the past 5 years as they've kind of gone through a little bit of a growth plan there to support our town as it's grown. So, when you put all these things together, I feel like I have a really good background for town meeting. I bring a lot to it and a lot of knowledge. And when I sit down in town meeting, I understand things very well. So I'm hoping that people in Precinct 1 will vote for me. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. All right, I'm turning back to Shufali, and she can introduce Adam Senesi. Sorry.
Yep. Adam Senesi is a 2-term town meeting member and a vice chair of the Capital Budget Committee. Adam and his wife Jess have been residents since 2007 and are raising 2 school-age children. Adam is seeking re-election to continue oversight of town infrastructure spending post-COVID, plan new school buildings, and partner with community stakeholders to develop quality of life experiences for residents in the lower town center. Over to Adam.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining today. And I'd like to thank Rep. Gordon along with the host committee, as well as all of the candidates that took time to show up today. And thank you to the audience and the viewers out there. My name is Adam. I'm a 2-term town meeting member from Precinct 1. I've tried to carve a niche for myself by 3 fundamentals on town meeting, and that's good attendance. I've tried to provide that good attendance should just speak for itself. And I'm just going to leave that there. The second fundamental is providing a high response rate to constituents. When people have reached out, when people have had questions and needed to know what departments within town they needed to reach out to, I've always been sure to respond to these queries within 24 hours. A lot of times people will ask us going into a town meeting how we plan to vote, and I'll always be transparent with voters and let them know where I am on the issues. I listen to their feedback, and when I've decided how I'm going to vote, I'm always 100% transparent. And I'll give them my rationale as to how I decided to support the endeavor that is in front of town meeting that I chose to support or not support. The third fundamental is I've really tried to provide great value to Precinct 1 by committee involvement. As Mr. Hardy, who came before me, just said, I mean, committees are really where things get done in town meeting. So I am the vice chair of the Capital Budget Committee, and that means that any spending that the town does on infrastructure that's worth $15,000 or more has to come in front of the Capital Budget Committee. and we discuss, why does the police department need a new police car? And we sit down with them and establish a vehicle replacement plan. And, we deal with bigger items such as buildings. And I'm happy to say that I served with Mr. Hardy on the Station 2 Fire Station Building Committee. I also am currently serving on the DPW Rec Facility Building Committee. And I like to have involvement with these programs because that gives me the opportunity to really try and manage the project as best as I can, or contribute to managing the project as best as I can on behalf of the residents of our district. As far as the Station 2 Building Committee, that one I'm particularly proud of because, one, if you drive by, that's just a beautiful building. We did it at a really good cost and a really good value to the town. And what that means is what we were able to do with that is we were able to expand our advanced life support capability and ambulance services. Rather than subcontracting, we could bring more in-house to Burlington, and we were able to improve response times for people in emergency situations. I served on the Water Committee. On the Water Committee, what we did was we worked with the Board of Selectmen to develop a workable plan to get through at town meeting. And what that entailed was, it was something that was highly unpopular at the time. And it was the possibility of going on the MWRA. We currently have 2 sources of water in Burlington. We have Mill Pond and we have the Vinebrook, the marshes. And to transition to NWRA at the time was a very controversial decision. But we tried to be as transparent in the process, and we had as many community information and public exchanges as possible. And it ended up passing town meeting with flying colors. It wasn't even controversial by the time it came to town meeting. And right now the plumbing is being laid into the ground. So we back in 2020, we were accepted full-time as an associate district of the MWRA. And right now there is a pipe being built along the Middlesex Turnpike that will go to Arlington and connect to the MWRA with an increased capacity. So I saw Kathy Fazio with a question earlier. That's the whole, we need that pipe to go into the ground so we can increase the water supply. So it's being worked on. I was on the Sidewalk Committee. Again, one of the most important things to me was transparency. So we conducted a series of surveys on the Sidewalk Committee where we identified some hot zones around Burlington. The people are most concerned that the sidewalks are in disrepair. And we took a multifaceted approach, but part of that approach involved us working really well with State Rep Gordon's office. Both Steve Moran and I, Steve Moran was the chair of our Sidewalk Committee, and he's a fabulous member of town meeting for his precinct. But me, him, and a couple of volunteers, we walked Route 3A, and it's entirely in Burlington. We compiled an entire report of pictures and with descriptions of the disrepair of the sidewalks, and we submitted that to State Rep Gordon, who worked with the Transportation Committee to bring $1 million worth of sidewalk improvements to 3A. And that's going to go in effect. That happens with this year's state budget. But I'd like to think that the Sidewalk Committee did a good job working together with our state rep's office. And I applaud State Rep Gordon for coming through on his promise to listen to our committee and work with us. So thank you. The reason I'm running again, I want to see the town rebound from this COVID hiccup. I hope that it was just a hiccup, and I want to be around to help facilitate its finances and provide a level of oversight. I want to get the conversation back to where we were just this time a year ago when we were talking about new school buildings, renovated school buildings, the high school. It needs a new boiler system. It needs new HVAC. We clearly need more square footage, more classroom space in Fox Hill and Pine Glen. So those buildings are next on the docket. And again, I've already been on 2 building committees. I would like to be involved in the process to see that Fox Hill School to fruition. as well as a Pine Glen and a renovated high school. That Lower Common project, that sounds like a lot of fun. There's so much potential that could be had from that. And that's also part of, to be able to fund these projects, we need the, to create a vibrant community that embraces the business community also, that funds 60% of the revenue that comes into town. So to revitalize that 3A area, and we don't know what it will look like. And again, I support transparency, so it should be a transparent project. But that should be a really fun project, and I want to be part of that.
Adam, we're about at time.
Okay, I just, can I mention one more thing? I'm a father of 2 children. One of them happens to be a special needs child. Every time I've had the opportunity on town meeting to advocate for handicapped access, I have 100% of the time, or special access to be ADA compliant. Thank you.
Thanks. And I just want to take a note. I'm going to be sending more aggressive about reminding folks about how much time we have left. I know it's easy to get really excited about these issues. So I will be reminding we're only a little more than halfway through our list of candidates. So looking forward to hearing the next folks.
All right, we're going to turn it back to Shufali, who introduced David.
Chris, so David Woodella is up for re-election as Precinct 1 town meeting member. David has lived in Burlington for 26 years with his wife, Susan, and 4 children. David takes his role as a town meeting member very seriously. Where we spend money as a town reflects what is important and where we want to invest in our future. David expects that we will be faced with many difficult financial decisions and tough choices this next year as we recover from this pandemic. David is dedicated to the best outcome for our community. Over to David.
Thank you, Shufali and Representative Gordon, for hosting this. As Shufali said, I've lived in Burlington for 26 years with my wife, Susan. We bought our house here. We've raised 4 children. We have a dog. We have a couple of chickens. Burlington's home to us. We enjoy the town immensely. And as part of our town, I actively participate in town meeting, our local government, as well as provide adult leadership to our local scout troop. I've got both a bachelor's and a master's degree from Worcester Polytech, and I work in high tech in Boston. Burlington, I think, is a really great town to raise a family in. We have excellent schools. We have a strong infrastructure that includes our elder and veteran services, our parks, recreation department, our safety groups, police and fire. The town has enough business to help keep our residential tax rates low and still maintain these services. As we go forward, we're going to need to carefully navigate this post-pandemic period. The biggest challenge will be to maintain necessary services without overtaxing our residents. As Shufali said, I take my role as town meeting very seriously. Where we spend money as a town reflects what's important and what we want to invest in our future. I expect we're going to be faced with these challenges and tough choices this next year and going forward. I'm dedicated to getting the best outcome for our community. So I do have a couple of priorities. First priority, I think, is really the backbone of our community, our schools. And we need to recover from this COVID pandemic and drive continued improvement in those areas, right? This year has been a challenge all around with our school system, for the teachers, for the students, for parents. And I think coming back from that is going to be difficult. Maybe it won't be, but I think that it's going to be a slow start, and we're going to have to really go. We're going to have to assess, what are the detriments and where have we lost ground with our kids and with our teaching facilities in this time frame. And I'm sure that's going to come at a cost, and we need to decide how we're going to spend money in that space. So I think that's one of the main priorities that I have as we go into this next cycle of town meeting and our next budgets going forward. Second priority is really the budget, right? It needs to be balanced and appropriately distributed. We have a great town infrastructure, and we can't just pool all our money into one thing or another. We've got to split it across many different areas. And again, coming out of the pandemic, I think we're going to be pressed hard for where we spend money. We need to make some conscious decisions in that space. Third priority, expansion and growth, right? We've got new homes, new condos, new office towers. They all need careful consideration. Many of them are within right. Other times they come to town meeting for an extension of zoning. And again, we need to make careful decisions in those cases. In some areas like Third Avenue, the planned development district, these activities can be extremely beneficial to the town. There's other instances where it wasn't a benefit for the town and town meeting rejected them. So, just making sure that we're conscious and we're thinking carefully about our decisions as we grow the town and we move forward. So I'm going to end it there. I'm open to any questions. I think these forums are great. The pandemic has kind of kept people inside. This gives everybody an opportunity to meet their candidates. So as we come forward to election, please save one of your votes for me. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn it back to Shufali.
Christopher Campbell is a special education administrator, chair of the Burlington Democratic Town Committee, and board member on the Burlington Education Foundation. Husband to Caitlin and father to Kennedy, Chris is running for one of the 6 seats of the Precinct 1 town meeting to be a voice for his neighbors, a voice for families, a voice for public schools, and a voice for Burlington's future. Take it away, Chris.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this important conversation. Last year, there was 2 openings on town meeting in Precinct 1, and I decided it was time to put myself forward and put my name in to be considered for one of those 2 seats, and was lucky enough to represent Precinct 1 for at town meeting last year, and really enjoyed my time there as we considered some very important issues, but most importantly, which was near and dear to my heart, was the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that was up in front of town meeting. I do have experience in the public schools. I'm currently the special ed program supervisor at Winchester High School, so I am very aware of the stress that is currently facing our students and our teachers as we have gone through the pandemic, both shifting from full remote to then hybrid, and then as we shift back to full in-person coming up in April. What I'm concerned about is not just the schools, but also the greater business community within Burlington. As many of you know, during the day, pre-pandemic, Burlington would swell to the size of a city with the various people that would come to town. And they would not just spend their money going out for lunch, but getting gas, going and shopping. And I'm really worried about the future finances of our town as we weather this storm that has been the pandemic. And I would like to continue to be a voice for the town, but also for the families. I do have a 2-year-old. She will be going to the Burlington Public Schools. I'm very interested in the proposals that will be facing our elementary schools. So we look at the Fox Hill School and then the Pine Glen School and what we want to do as a town when those schools need to be updated. And then there's always going to be the high school project that is going to be down the line. But also while we look for the future, I also don't want to forget our past. Burlington has come to where we are through some very interesting and very important decisions. And it's important for us to also remember our seniors when we have these conversations. I'm a very big proponent of senior affordable housing and very interested in making sure that those opportunities will continue in town so that those that would like to downsize can do so and hopefully stay in our community. And lastly, I've been very involved in town working on increasing voter turnout, been involved in many candidates, encouraging them to run, and been on a lot of campaigns in town, and really just want to make sure that we do have a great voter turnout. So I would ask for one of your 6 votes on or before April 10th. Thank you. All right, next I'm going to turn it over to Neil.
Thank you, Chris. Paul Noonan is a candidate for town meeting, Precinct 3. Paul Noonan is a town meeting member for Precinct 3. Paul has been a town meeting member for 14 years, a member of the Ways and Means Committee for 9 years, and a current member of the Rink Oversight Committee. Paul will continue to work hard by investigating, reviewing, and asking questions concerning the business of the town. I hand over the mic to Mr. Noonan.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you all for coming out. So I've been a town meeting member for 14 years, Ways and Means Committee member for 9 years. I was on the school budget subcommittee for 9 years. All that experience has given me the knowledge and the experience I need to do the in-depth questions and analysis to determine where the taxpayers' dollars are going, what it's funding, whether it's a good expenditure or a poor expenditure. I've been on the Marshall Simons renovation school subcommittee for renovating the Marshall Simons. I've toured that building before it was renovated, during and after. I do all kinds of investigation when warrant articles come up. I've been on the roof at the high school several times when roof repairs needed to be done. I've been at the old fire station 2, when we were discussing replacing that building. I've been in there several times. I've driven around with the fire chief on multiple occasions, looking at new locations for the fire station. I think one of the things that one of the attributes I can bring to town meeting is the experience I've had with the school subcommittee, being on Ways and Means, and having an in-depth knowledge of where every dollar comes in and where it goes out. And it's not just current expenditures. I think one of the things the town meeting members need to look at is what future impact does that have? We not only look at financial articles, we look at zoning, we look at things around rezoning, and looking at what potentially may get rezoned, how that's going to affect traffic patterns, what revenue that's going to bring into the town, what type of DPW water resources it's going to take from the town. So there's a more in-depth analysis that needs to be done when articles come before a town meeting member. It's not just the here and now, but it's how that affects everybody in the future. And I think that's one of the things I can bring to the town meeting going forward for the next 3 years, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, I'm going to turn it back to Neil. He can introduce Tammy.
Thank you. Tammy Hall is a candidate for town meeting precinct 3. Tammy Hall has been a resident of Burlington for 17 years, and Tammy is running for town meeting in precinct 3. Tammy lives with her husband and 2 children, ages 15 and 11. Professionally, she is a software technical program manager and has managed software programs and projects. I yield the floor to Tammy.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you everyone for organizing this event. My name is Tammy Hall. I've enjoyed being part of the Burlington community. When my children were young, I volunteered for Burlington Mother to Mother. I'm currently a volunteer for Burlington Against Racism and the Burlington Equity Coalition. I get great satisfaction from working to make our community a more equitable and inclusive place to live. As a software manager, I continually look for ways to make process improvements and increase efficiency, and I believe my organizational skills would benefit town meeting committee work. The events of the past year have drawn my focus to town government. I'm concerned about the long-term impact on town revenue from the pandemic, and it was very disheartening to hear stories of racism in Burlington schools at a Black Lives Matter vigil held last spring. I was in favor of the warrant at the September town meeting to fund the Director of DEI position, and I believe the town should take additional measures to support equity and inclusion for all. I would like to serve town meeting member to represent precinct 3 on important issues facing our town during this unsettled time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tammy. All right, so we're going to go back to the top for our uncontested races, but still just as important. So I'm going to turn it back to Neil to introduce Bill.
Thank you, Chris. Bill Bayer is running for re-election to the position of town moderator. Bill has participated in our government for 28 years, 25 years on town meeting, and 3 years as town moderator. Bill looks forward to another year as your town moderator. I hand it over to him.
Okay, now I'm not muted. You'd think I got this down by now. We've been doing Zoom and meetings for how long? But anyway, thank you for this opportunity. I enjoy the being able to speak about what I've done and what I'd like to do. I'm glad that Chris Campbell there was nice enough to say that even though I'm running unopposed, it's still important. So I would definitely appreciate your vote. My 28 years experience in town government has provided me with a detailed detailed knowledge of how all branches of our government worked. And it turns out that was really important this past year, as we ended up having to run 3 different town meetings in 3 different ways. You know, the first one, I've, you know, working closely with Amy Warfield, our town clerk, who did a superb job helping me. We put together an outdoor meeting. We got lucky with the weather. We crammed our meeting into one night and got it done. But it wasn't the best option because there was only minimal debate because everyone was concerned about just getting things done. So we switched to a hybrid meeting where we had some people that came in person to the auditorium, and others were on, you know, zoomed in on or through WebEx on for our September town meeting. And once we got the bugs worked out, that worked pretty well. So we did essentially a repeat of that in the January town meeting, except nobody was in the auditorium. We moved people off into separate rooms. And we've learned a lot of things in those 3 meetings as to how to make things work. So I look forward to being reelected, because in the upcoming May town meeting, we're going to have to do a repeat of that. But one reason I'm looking forward to continuing as town moderator is because there's some things I'd like to accomplish. Most importantly, I'd like to see us reestablish our in-person town meetings. I think it's important for having face-to-face debate and people having to talk in front of the town and stand up and vote for all to see. I think that's an important piece of our democracy, and I hope to continue that. There's also some work on some of the committees that I appoint that I like to continue. I've worked on some balancing the committees with some diversity, and also working to make some of them more visible and getting them out in front of the public so they're not working behind closed doors. I'd like to thank everyone who put this together, but as importantly, if not more so, I'd like to thank the voters who showed up to listen to this today. Our system of government does not work without your participation, and I'm glad to see you here today. So thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, I'm gonna turn it back to Neil to introduce Martha.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Martha Simon is our next candidate. Martha is running for re-election to the Burlington School Committee to continue the work she has been doing for the past 6 years. Martha is dedicated to ensuring that every student can reach their potential, regardless of their academic level and their social emotional needs. Martha's main goal is schools where every child feels that they belong and feel safe. I yield the floor to Martha.
Thank you, Neil. It's wonderful to see you. I also want to thank everyone who made this forum possible. So thank you all. For those of you who don't know me, my background is that I was a special education teacher for 38 years, and I had students with all kinds of learning abilities and challenges. I also worked with students who didn't stand out in any particular way, and they didn't make waves, but they still prospered when they were immersed in a quality educational experience. My goal is to advocate for every student in Burlington so that they can reach their potential. I'm not going to repeat the lines. Okay, I'm back. I'm not going to repeat what Neil said, but a very high priority of mine is cultural proficiency and equity. I've worked on committees in the district and in the town to enhance our schools' ability to offer the diversity, equity, and inclusion that all of our students and all of our staff need. I will be extremely excited to work with our new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, who I believe will be announced in the next week or two, which I want to thank town meeting and a lot of people here tonight who made that happen this year. so that it wouldn't be something that we were starting to do the hiring process next summer. So I'm really pleased and want to thank everybody. I also, during the pandemic, I supported all the health and safety issues. I was negotiating with the teachers union. It was not easy because the teachers were understandably concerned about a lot of issues. The families were concerned about a lot of issues, but I think that we came to an agreement and an understanding that was worked. Pleased that the Burlington schools have been open part-time since September, and that we are going back to full-time for families who choose it in the next couple of weeks at different levels, different dates. This new reopening is going to be disruptive, but I think it will benefit a lot of our students and our families. I am concerned about the rise in COVID numbers in the town, in the state, and in the country, but the schools will continue to do the mitigating strategies that we've taught the kids, that we're working on, that we're keeping the buildings clean. And I do hope that the town and our families will continue to be vigilant, because the COVID virus is not gone. And we want to keep the schools open. So I hope that we'll all be working together in that way. I've also advocated in the 6 years I've been on the committee for improved communications and for transparency. And if you ever watch the school committee meetings, which I can't imagine how boring that is to watch, I'm the one who says, can we put that on the website? So this is important to me, that we communicate, that we are transparent with town meeting, with the town, with the parents, with everybody. So I will continue to advocate for the things I've been working on. Social emotional learning is a big issue that needs to be addressed in our students before the COVID pandemic happened. And now the impact from this past year and the ongoing issues are increasing our students' emotional needs, and we do need to continue to address those. I do think we have a robust social emotional programming and guidance counselors and teachers who care about their children. But we need to really be sure that we're reaching out and meeting the needs of all of our students. I also will continue to advocate for equity, inclusion, and diversity in our schools. Once we have the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, that one person isn't going to fix things for us. We all need to work together. We have staff who've been working on this. We have students who've been working together, and we need to continue to do that. We need to support our students and our staff who are non-white, who are, I keep changing my mind about what terms to use because each term has its drawbacks, but our Black, Indigenous, and people of color students and staff need support, and our white educators and students need support to learn and to know what to say and what not in a situation, and what not to say that would hurt somebody else. So those are all important issues for me. We have two building projects that are coming up. One is the renovation of the high school, and the other is the new elementary school. We need to be looking at those projects in terms of health. We now realize that the ventilation in a building is a really important thing, and we need to connect that to the health of our environment. And those things, I've been doing research on that, and there are ways that we can combine that. The healthiest buildings that we could build are going to be the ones that are the most environmentally friendly and sustainable. And I want us to be talking about that going forward.
We're about at time, Martha.
Okay, and I'm just proud to have been a resident of Burlington. I'm delighted to have served on the school committee for the last 6 years, and I ask for your vote so that I can serve for another 3 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. All right, next I'm going to pitch back to Neil, and he can introduce Nicole.
Nicole Cadillac is a candidate for a town meeting for Precinct 6. Nicole is an educator, writer, and mom living in Burlington since 2013. Nicole couldn't think of a better community to raise her family, and Nicole is eager to have the opportunity to keep Burlington beautiful. Nicole believes strongly that we have a responsibility and opportunity to create a world in which we want to live. And I welcome Nicole.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for attending, and thank you for hosting this event. And thanks for giving me the time to introduce myself and for the opportunity to serve our beautiful community. My name is Nikki Cadillac, and I've been connected with Burlington since 2002, and we officially moved here in 2013. I was chosen for an interim seat for town meeting in January, and I'm now running for a 3-year seat for Precinct 6. I've been an educator since 2004, and I've been involved at all ages and all levels, from kindergarten and early elementary all the way through high school, and from teaching all the way through private tutoring, school administration, everything along there. And since 2018, I've also been working as an author. I'm the proud parent to 3 current and future BPS students, and I've been really active in their education and with the schools as much as I've been able to, joining in site planning and school committee meetings, CPAC and special education planning meetings. One of my passions is making sure that schools are working for every kid that's in the school, and also for the teachers and the families involved. I also enjoy doing this kind of work for larger organizations, so the town at large. I love the town of Burlington, and I plan to live here for many years to come with my family. And we have a great community here. And that said, there's always room for improvement. And I can think of 2 specific areas where we could improve: diversity, equity, and inclusion, and community engagement. My ideal vision of Burlington is a town where all people, regardless of background, feel welcome to participate in all areas of the town. I want my children to grow up in a place where they and their peers feel valued equally for the experience they bring, and where the adults around them model inclusivity and diversity. These themes can be modeled both at home and throughout the community, and town government is one place where I believe more awareness around diversity is needed. When diverse perspectives aren't represented in our town leadership, the experiences and the needs of some groups can be overlooked during the decision-making process. It's not anybody's fault necessarily, we just don't know what we don't know. So we have work to do as a town to ensure all residents feel confident contributing in all aspects of town governance. And this ties in closely with community awareness and engagement in local issues. Our voter turnout is very high for presidential elections, but it's very low for local elections. The local issues have the potential to have a really great impact on day-to-day experiences for community members. So we need to work to inform our town's voters on local issues and why they matter, and motivate them to come out and vote in local elections like the one coming up on April 10th. As voters, we should all be taking the opportunity to continue shaping our wonderful town into an even better place to live and raise our families. As a town meeting member, I will continue the work I've already been doing with Burlington Against Racism and the Burlington Equity Coalition to ensure all community members are informed about how voting works in Burlington, and to raise voter awareness about the issues affecting our community members from marginalized or underrepresented backgrounds. I believe strongly that we do have a responsibility and the opportunity to create the world in which we want to live, and I'm eager to continue on that journey with you as a town meeting member. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nikki. And last, I'm going to pitch it back to Neil to introduce Mark.
Thank you. Mark Woods is running for re-election to town meeting for Precinct 7. Mark has been a town meeting member since 2011 and is also currently a member of the Capital Budget Committee. I yield the floor to Mark.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute my microphone. Well, thanks everyone for this opportunity this afternoon, for the moderator and the hosts. This is really wonderful. Seeing a lot of chats from people in town saying this is great. So thank you for doing this, and look forward to doing it again in the future. As you mentioned, I've been a town meeting member since 2011. And one of the reasons that I ran initially was to get involved in town government. One of my neighbors said, well, if you don't participate, you're part of the problem, you're not part of the solution. So that's why I ran initially, and really enjoyed working as a member of the town meeting. And most recently, I joined the Capital Budget Committee, and as you heard earlier from Adam, plays an important role in reviewing the finances or things that need to be potentially paid for based on requests from the various departments within the town. In terms of priorities, what I think is important to the town, the first thing to me is infrastructure. The sewer and water lines in town have reached their age based on discussions we've had with Department of Public Works. And it's wonderful that we're going to be tapping into MWRA, but we got to make sure that water gets to the people in the town of Burlington. So we need to put in a long-term program that's going to replace the sewer and water pipes in town to ensure that not only do people get the water, but the water that they get to drink is safe, as well as with the sewer lines. The second item I think that's important in town, and I know this is mentioned earlier as well, the sidewalks. Just in my own neighborhood, I noticed the sidewalks make it very difficult for people who, let's say, are a little older and need to walk with some type of walking help, whether it's a cane or a walker. And if the sidewalks have tree roots going through them, they can't use the sidewalks to walk, and then they're required to walk on the street, which is not necessarily the safest place for someone to be when traffic's going by. And thirdly, I'm an advocate for having good public transportation in town. Again, we've heard from other people earlier, there's a fair number of people in town who are older and maybe no longer drive themselves, and they rely on something or someone, and hopefully it'll be public transportation, to be able to get around town for whether it's a doctor's appointment or they have to go grocery shopping or they have some other personal errands they have to run. And having a dependable public form of transportation for anyone in town, whether you're a citizen or you work in town, is very, very important for the viability of the town going forward. So again, thank you for this format, and people have questions, I'm here.
All right, so that is our event. I just wanted to thank all of the candidates for being here. Specifically, I want to thank Rohit, Shufali, and Neil for their awesome ability to introduce our candidates. Thank you to Jayat and Ram for starting the idea that it became this. Andy Wells Beans for being the technical guy behind all of this, helping us to run smoothly, Raz Manasian, and so many more that helped to make this event what it is today. Make sure that you vote either on April 10th, polls open at 8 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m. or before. We now have the ability to do early voting. It will be the week before. I put it in the chat, but it's April 5th, 8:30 to 4:30 at Grandview Farm. April 6th, 8:30 to 4:30. April 7th, 8:30 to 7. Thursday, April 8th, 8:30 to 4:30, or Friday, April 9th, 8:30 to noon. So there are so many opportunities to get out and vote. So make sure that we do vote Burlington. It's super important. Thank you so much for all the candidates, and have a great afternoon.